Some of you will know that the recruiting gym, we obviously like to be quite topical, and this week we're focusing on national days. And it just so happens that on Monday it's National Absurdity Day. Basically, it's a day that encourages people to allow a little bit of absurdity into their life. And absurdity, I suppose, refers to the illogical, the unreasonable, the nonsensical. And believe it or not, when Angela and I were talking about who should we invite on this day, your name came up, Jem. So, why do you think your name popped into our heads when it came to National Absurdity Day?
Probably because I've been doing absurd things on LinkedIn for a number of years now, to be fair.
Well, because I remember you back in the lip syncing days.
I still do a little bit of it. I
Yeah,
just don't do
but
it.
not as much. And your son is obviously heavily involved now. I love a bit of using children and grandchildren as clickbait. Um, so I suppose my first question that you can answer in a bit more detail, and that is, what would you say is the most absurd thing that you've done on LinkedIn?
God, like there's loads. So there's videos of me chasing people down streets. There's multiple videos of me lip syncing and linking it somehow to what I actually do. God, there's a lot.
Is there one standout for you that perhaps got you really good traction
I'd probably say it was
or abuse?
starting with the videos in the first place. So back when the lip sync videos started, which we're talking about 5.5 years ago,
Mm.
wasn't that many people actually creating videos on LinkedIn at that time. So, and especially people who were creating them, they were quite professional. And then there was me that was lip syncing and dancing around. And don't get me wrong, I did try the professional to start with, but all everyone commented on was the fact that I've got a really rubber face. I thought I'd use it to my advantage.
But the thing is, and this is what we mean by absurd. Something that's absurd is something that shouldn't be taken in a negative connotation. It's something that people remember. And if you do something that people remember, for example, with the lip set, I remember that, and I know, you've all the different camera. You even tried lots of filters and sparkles and all sorts of things. So, where do you get the ideas from that you've either historically you've done or that you continue to do?
Most of the time, especially with like the lip syncing ones, it is the lyrics in songs. So I love music and I've always loved music. And when I'm working away, I do tend to have music on in the background. And sometimes the lyric will kind of like jump out and it'll make me think, oh, that you could link back to that and that'd be a really good post for this. And that tends to be where I used to get my ideas from. And why there was more lip syncing videos historically is because back then I was a business manager, I was always on the road. So I was constantly listening to the radio and constantly listening to new songs and thinking of new ideas. So yeah, that's kind of where that one came from. And it was just, like I said, everyone kept commenting on the fact that I had a rubber face rather than actually listening to the professional stuff I was trying to talk about.
Yeah.
Like being on camera is not something I ever found. I've ever been feeling. Oh God, I can't tripping over my words. You can clearly tell it's Friday. It's not something I've ever been comfortable with. I'm not the most confident person in the world. I've never been the most confident person in the world. So when I'm trying to actually do these really professional videos, you can see I'm a little bit uncomfortable. I'm playing with my hair. Whereas in a 15, 20-second little lip syncy video, you're not seeing any of that. It's a lot more shorter. It's more impactful. So it actually made me realize as well that those short little videos are what do better on social media anyway. Yeah. If we're doing something that's a minute and a half, 2 minutes long, you're asking people to give you quite a lot of their time.
Yes.
Whereas 15, 20 seconds, you're not asking for a great deal, especially with the fact that what you're actually talking about is in the video. Because obviously the words and things like, I'm trying to think of an example.
Well, I must admit, I think it's a brilliant link, using music and lyrics. And I must admit, I've used them a little bit in my post, and it was a couple of years ago. I never watched Hannah Montana. But apparently Miley Cyrus did a song, and it was all about climbing mountains. I can't remember the name of the song, so forgive me. But oh my God, the lyrics you could pull out not just the chorus, but some of the verses as well. And absolutely, the Clyde, whoever wrote that in, fantastic. That must have been Agela. It is so relatable to people in business, or particularly people in recruitment. But you know, even with the silly things in the music, it helps us to remember. It helps us to remember people. It helps us to remember things. You only have to look at adverts on TV. You know, some of the most absurd ones are the ones that we remember. And if I go back, well, let's go back to when I was at school, which was a long, long time ago. I would never have thought that something like this, that, you know, in 20, 30 years' time, ish, 40 years' time, I would be carrying around this little handheld beast that had my entire school library in it. It had all of my record collections in it. I could work, do my shopping, order food, play games, all on that. You know, it was absurd that we thought we could fly a man to the moon, have a little walk around, and then fly him back. So, you know, absurd actually gives us that creativity. Being absurd, it tends to push the boundaries, step outside of your comfort zone. And you've already said that, believe it or not, well, not all trainers are extroverts. Sometimes we'll do that little bit, we'll do the training session, we'll go online, but then we like to be quite reserved. But I think if you think about the absurd, and don't take this the wrong way, the absurd behavior that you perhaps done online, what has that done for you?
It's helped me stand out. So it's helped people actually notice me and remember me. And people will still talk to me about some of the videos like you've just done today
Yeah.
that I did 5 years plus ago now. Because it sticks in your mind. You remember that quirky woman on LinkedIn who's pulling faces. You remember the fact that our son's actually shooting Nerf guns at her head.
Yeah.
Because we all go, it's essentially, it's relatable. We all sing and dance in the car when we're on our own. Kids do distract us when we're trying to work. It's how you stand out, and it's how you make people realize you're different to everyone else. And especially with like us talking about recruiters in general, there's a lot of people that actually work in very, very similar sectors, and it's very hard to stand out. But actually, by showcasing just a little bit of your personality, which is what people buy into anyway, and end up working with you, the reasons why they end up working with you,
Yeah.
it makes such a massive difference. And it might seem absurd right now because it's completely out of your comfort zone, but once you've been doing it for a while, you get used to it.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think there's one word that I want to pick up on that you just mentioned, and that's relatable. You've already mentioned about it being short and snappy, but memorable, but relatable. Because, yeah, you might see someone online doing something a little bit silly, but in your own head, you probably know that you've done that anyway. You've probably done that in a night out at the Christmas party, whatever it might be. You know, and it's almost as if that times of the year, certain times of the year, and we've got a big one coming up, the absurd behavior, it almost becomes the norm. It becomes acceptable. You know, for example, we've just had Halloween. It's absurd, isn't it? You think, right, let's dress the kids up in something really scary based upon a movie that they can't watch until they're 18, and send them out to total strangers' houses saying, give me sugar. You know, like the parents bloody need that. And yet, for one day in the year, we think it's totally acceptable. No, it's absurd.
And it gets worse as well now because it's not. We don't just dress the kids, because when we were kids, it was black bin liner, just send us out on the street. Now it's spend 50, 60 quid on an outfit for your kids, and hundreds of pounds decorating your house too now.
Yeah. Oh no, it's mad. And even the people that are doing the answering of the door now, they're under pressure to do something a little bit absurd. I mean, one year I got the screen mask on, and these because I didn't know who was going to be knocking at the door. So as the door opened up, I bent down and I just went, what? And well, these kids must have been about 3 or 4. It frightened the life out of them. They dropped all their sweets on the path, and I thought, oh God, have I been really bad? But the thing is, they'll remember that for next year. They'll think, right, we'll be prepared for him next year. They probably have a Nerf gun. They'll get it from your son. But this absurd behavior, it gets you noticed. You know, if you think about, for example, the Extinction Rebellion or the Just Stop Oil people, and don't get me on the TikTokers, you know, but these people, they sometimes do things with orange paint or, you know, striking and standing in the middle of the road. And we might think that's absurd, but they're doing it for what they think is a valid reason. So, still on the theme of absurd, what can you recommend people at least try on LinkedIn that might get them more noticed?
Create videos. Actually start making a little bit of noise and showcasing your personality a little bit. I think quite a lot of people, you're in two camps. You either want to post and you get it and you're all over it and you've got the confidence to do so, or you hold yourself back because you're worried about what people are going to think about what you're going to say. When in reality, today's news is tomorrow's chip paper. Unless it's as completely absurd as posting lip syncing videos when the majority of LinkedIn's still being professional, those first couple of posts and those first couple of comments that you've put are probably going to not get remembered anyway. So don't overthink it.
Yeah.
And just try to be nice. Like that person that you are, the reasons why you actually got into recruitment, because you wanted to help people. The majority of you are going to be quite extroverted individuals that like getting to know someone else. So actually put that in the comments section on people's posts, ask questions, dig a little bit deeper, and don't be afraid to do video or send connection requests and messages to people that you actually want to work with. So there's a load of stigma around actually doing any form of outreach on LinkedIn, but outreach is effective as long as it's done in the right way. As long as we're not telling people, for want of a better term, buy my shiz, and we're actually taking the time to get to know them, which probably sounds a little bit absurd to most people who've been quite KPI led, and it's getting something out of that conversation. You are getting something out of that conversation, even if that person's not buying from you straight away. You're still increasing brand awareness. You're still reminding that person that you're there. So when they do have a need, they're more likely to come to you because you were the person that supported them and been nice on LinkedIn, rather than the person that jumped in their inbox and went, buy my shiz. And then when you said, no thanks, they just ghosted you.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that people in your profession will say that, be nice, but also be authentic, be your true self, because I think when you try and act somebody that you're not, people see through that. There's no hiding when you're on a video, however long that is.
Yep.
And then, of course, you've got to battle with the LinkedIn algorithms, and you've got to play the game there, which is what Catherine in the gym has been focusing on last week, because you've got to constantly be up to date with what's going on there. Well, look, Jem, I think it's been wonderful to actually talk to you. I am going to wrap up in just a minute, because you've given, I think people probably need to watch this back and listen out to all the little gems that you've actually given us in this about being relatable, short, snappy, try something different. Yes, you can be a little bit wacky, but I do just want to finish off, and I'm going to have to read this, bless me, because I can't get the name right. It's a little bit philosophical. It's called The Myth of Sisyphus. And this was written in 1942 by Albert Camus. And basically, he outlines several approaches to what's called the absurd life. And in the last chapter, he quotes a little bit of Greek mythology, and it was all about Sisyphus. Now, Sisyphus was condemned to repeat the same meaningless task of pushing a boulder up a mountain, only to just about get to the top to see it roll down again. Now, he actually, this Camus guy who wrote the essay, he concluded by saying the struggle itself towards the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. Therefore, we have to imagine Sisyphus as being happy. Now, this is probably why I'm not a philosopher, and it might not make a lot of sense to a lot of people, but I see people every single day, particularly in recruitment and on LinkedIn, and I've been guilty of it myself, of pushing that boulder up the hill. There's a lot of effort, there's a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and energy going into something, but we don't always get the results. So I think rather than keep doing the same thing and keep pushing the same boulder, build a little bit of absurdity into your life. Build a little bit of absurdity into what you do online. So nice little philosophical end to it, but a massive thank you to you, Jem. And just in case people don't know how to get hold of you, how can we get hold of you?
I'm all over LinkedIn. I'm that gobby Yorkshire girl that's either shouting on a video, giving some people advice, or having a bit of banter with someone in a comment. Because just before we wrap up, just to go back to what Alan said, actually showcasing that personality and being your authentic self is important. I'm a cheeky mare at heart, so I'm a cheeky mare online, because that's what people are going to get on the phone.
Yeah. So in the search bar on LinkedIn, you recommend typing in Gobby Yorkshire girl and cheeky mare,
Yeah.
right? Put that in with your Boolean string and see if Jem comes up.
If you just put in Jem, I should actually come up because of everything that I've been doing on LinkedIn for so many years,
Yeah.
which is why it's actually important to do all these little steps that me and Ellen have been talking about in this little video today, because it actually helps you rank higher.
Yeah.
So when people actually type in your name, you'll come up higher in the searches because you've been doing all these little bits and adding value to the platform too.
There you go. That was like a bonus track on a CD that you get. Look, everybody, have a fantastic week. Have a great Monday. I think you've hopefully got a few takeaways to introduce into your daily workout. And once again, Jem, stay online. I'm going to click stop recording. Take care. Bye all.